One. Welcome to South Charlotte Sports Report Live. It is a 9 a.m. edition on a Friday morning. I am incredibly excited to have someone really everyone in Charlotte knows, a former TV personality here, and now just a wonderful mom working in public relations with a couple swimmers in her house. Diana Rugg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's early morning. I have 3 kids on their Zooms in the house and husband downstairs practicing his guitar before he goes to work. So all good.
It has definitely changed the last 10 or 11 months. Here's what I wanted to talk to you about today. You've been very vocal and very much advocating for your daughter's sport, which is swimming. Let's go backwards. I guess it's been 1 week today. Is that right? That your girls got the word that the swimming season for CMS schools was over with, correct?
It was 1 week yesterday. I think the school board meeting was on a Thursday.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. We've talked about everything being put in pause here for CMS right now, both not school in pause, going to remote, but a couple sports on pause that were in season right now. And where was swimming at in the whole equation? I know you had some meets, so where was swimming at when you got the word?
We were done with our dual meet season, and we were a day away from our conference meet because conference was Friday and Saturday, depending on whether you 3A or 4A.
Okay.
Or which district you were in. I think South Meck was on Friday and Myers Park was on Saturday.
So you were right there at it. And here's what I think a lot of people aren't understanding right now. In that CMS meeting that we're talking about, the superintendent was kind of encouraged to make a decision that allowed sports that were in the playoffs to continue. And in his version of that, that meant volleyball, which Providence is playing for a state championship this weekend, and we want to wish them a lot of luck.
Go Panthers, yes.
Cross country, who I know we're going to have some champions come out of there as well. And I figured we'll have some swimming champions. However, since we were only at the conference tournament and not in the state playoffs, all the water was let out of the pool. Season's over with, correct?
That is correct. And it was a pretty deflating moment to learn that because my daughter had just learned 30 minutes prior to that school board meeting that she had made the conference team. And that was hard to do this year. Only 2 kids per school were allowed to go with no exhibition swimmers. Usually they allowed 2 kids for points and then 2 or 3 for exhibition, or if you make a certain cutoff time. And she swam regionals last year, did a best time in her 200 and 500, still stands as her best time to date because all the swim meets were canceled after that. And we were really excited to learn that she had actually earned a spot at conference. And then 5 minutes later, I opened my Twitter and I see Andos Helms from WFAE tweet, "Sports are paused."
Best school education reporter around. Let me say that for Ann. She's wonderful.
Yeah, absolute institution. And I trust her greatly. And I often converse with her on Twitter to ask her questions and DMs and things. And I'm like, no, this can't be. My daughter made the conference team and she's not the fastest. We know that. We came late, even though she's been swimming since she was 6, we came late to full-time swimming. Like she didn't go full-time in swimming till she was 15. And that's because she went to Northwest School of the Arts. Up to that point in 9th grade, she was on a 3-hour bus ride every day, an hour and a half to school and an hour and a half home. And our boundary school that we were assigned to was actually further away. So up to that point, we just didn't have the bandwidth, especially with a little brother and sister, to go full-time in swimming. And we changed team when she was 15 and she was able to go full-time in swimming. So she's not as fast as those kids. We hear a lot about the Katie Roushes, the Garrett Boones, those guys. So it was a stretch for her to make conference. And I was really proud of her because she really put it in, and she worked for the team. She helped out. She was available to swim whatever Coach Goodis wanted her to swim, which is important in high school swimming. It's not about the individual, it's about the team. And she was super excited. And then 5 minutes later, we found out sports are paused. So we tuned into the school board meeting and they're discussing it at the very end, an hour later. And 2 of the board members say, it would be really unfair to stop sports if they're already in the postseason. And that night, Providence and Myers Park were both supposed to play volleyball in the regionals. And the very next morning was the cross country meet for South Mech.
Right.
And the next day was going to be the cross country regionals for Myers Park. And also the conference meet was Friday and Saturday for South Mech and Myers Park and all the local teams. And I'm like, whew. The superintendent said it would be totally unfair to cut these kids off in the postseason, that it would be, I think his word was cruel. It would be cruel to make them stop in the postseason when they're already in the postseason. And I'm like, yeah, that would be cruel. And he meant volleyball and cross country. He didn't mean swimming. And I'm like, how is it possible? And they keep coming back to one, that it's just not safe to compete in sports right now. Well, there is no magic blanket that allows volleyball and cross country to be safe.
No, those gyms, you can't. The COVID grows in the gyms. If the COVID is nowhere, that nowhere might be the pool. You know, if we really want to talk about what is the safest sport being offered right now,
right,
it's got to be swimming. Correct? Gibby Harris has even told me that.
A vat of chlorinated water. It's Cloroxed water. And so that was really perplexing to me. I mean, in volleyball, we have some great volleyball players. And if I were the superintendent, I wouldn't want to mess with Coach Barry either and get on her bad side. But at the same time, they're in a gym, in that square, breathing hard, heavy on each other. And what the heck? Swimming, you're 6 feet apart because lanes are 6 feet wide. You're swimming in chlorinated water. As soon as you finish, the heat behind you dives over, so you're not in contact. And then you climb out, you pick up your mask that's behind the block, and you put it over your face, and you go talk to your coach. And it's in reverse before your event. You wear your mask up to the block. Sometimes you have to hold it on your face because, it won't go around your ears with your cap on. And then you put it in your baggie, and you climb up on the blocks. We've been very safe and socially distant the whole time.
Now, you're exactly right there. I have talked to so many people, and I just want to pause you for 1 second here.
Go ahead.
These coaches and trainers of every sport have done an incredible job following every rule, every protocol, everything that we've been told to be safe. And I know the swimming's been doing that. So I just wanted to kind of just double down on what you just said. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you're exactly right, because trainers, coaches, teammates, parents know it's in their athletes' best interest to follow the rules. Nobody wants to get COVID. Nobody wants to kill grandma. This is a very serious disease. We understand that. We are not denying COVID. We are not denying that masks work. We very much understand that this is a serious disease. It's killing a lot of people. It's making a lot of people very sick. On top of it, it has some lasting effects, which no one wants an athlete to have. But it's also in an athlete's best interest to stay active and healthy, which sitting around the house and not taking part in sports is not active and healthy.
It's not healthy.
Your best health comes from being active. And so we have limited no parents on the pool deck, only coaches, officials, timers, swimmers. And we all wear masks as an official, because I'm a certified official for high school swimming. It's my job to say, if I see a kid without a mask, I'm like, you got to put that on. But I haven't had to. They've been good. And most of them, especially the better swimmers, have been doing club team practices since May. So they've been socially distanced at their club teams. It's usually 2 or 3 kids per lane at opposite ends of the pool, maybe one in the middle or at the flags. They've stayed distant from each other. The coaches are wearing masks on the pool deck. Parents aren't allowed on the pool deck. The kids are encouraged to stay socially distant from each other. And I'm also a coach, but at a developmental level team, not these fast kids, but youngsters. And while we stretch every day, we put our masks on until we stretch, and then we move to the opposite ends. Everyone has a chair to put their stuff on, and they separate out opposite ends of the pool, and then they can take their masks off and get in. I wear a mask the whole time. If I have to take my mask off to shout directions to, opposite ends of the pool, like I'm literally shouting to 4 corners of the pool.
Right.
I take my mask off, but I make sure that I am 15 feet from everybody, which I am. Yes. We take it seriously. No one wants to kill grandma. No one believes that this doesn't exist. And if you have symptoms, you stay home, you get tested. And if you test positive or exposed to someone test positive in your family, you stay out for 2 weeks.
Right.
I tested positive. My husband tested positive. My younger daughter tested positive. We stayed out of school. We stayed out of swimming. And then my older daughter never caught it. She lives in our house. She never caught it. We had her
I have the
tested
same
twice.
exact situation in my house. I am one of 5 that to date has not had it. So
Yeah.
I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but
no. And I served Thanksgiving dinner just to our family because, we didn't go down and see grandma for Thanksgiving or Christmas. We stayed here and I served dinner to the whole family. And I was like, the day after Thanksgiving, I tested positive. I'm like, gosh, darn it. But the kids already had a week off. That was probably the week of the symptoms began. And then they stayed out the following week. And my daughter's like, I have a swim meet, my oldest daughter, a club meet. So I had taken them to the doctor on Monday. One tested positive, one tested negative. And so I'm like, the one that's negative, she went to the basement. She ate all her meals, did all her schoolwork there.
I
she
did the
slept
same.
there.
Yeah.
She was isolated because she was healthy. And then on Friday, I had her tested again, and she was still negative. So we sent her to the swim meet. She has never tested positive and never had symptoms. And neither has my youngest son, who's 9. And it happens. Kids will pick it up somewhere. They test positive. They have to stay home from swim practice. And it's happened a couple of times to a couple of swimmers on my daughter's teams. They stay home. They quarantine. The people who are around them go get tested. If they're negative, they can come back. If they're positive, they have to stay home. We are super strict. I mean, super strict on it. So I don't want Gibby Harris or the superintendent to think that we're blowing her off.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's part of the frustration here. As I've said, so this decision to pause for 3 weeks, I'm going to tell you, and I would tell Gibby if I were sitting here, and I've interviewed Gibby before, about the only thing that I have seen different is the sports are gone for right now. However, most of the sports, the kids now have just transitioned to practicing on their own, which is less safe. I haven't seen a decrease in people on the road. I haven't seen a decrease in the workplace. I haven't seen much of a decrease anywhere, but we sure managed to stop a lot of things for kids. Yeah. And it's, I think that's been the theme of these 10 and a half months now is kids have been the biggest loser. And kids struggle to advocate for themselves. It's, as you know, and that's why folks like yourself and so many other people have stood up and raised the issue. And you have to. We all have to advocate. And you know this, you can't advocate just for swimmers. You've got to advocate for these basketball players right now and all the other sports and put it all together. And it's frustrating right now for all of us as families, all of these kids. And you touched on it earlier. To me, I really worry long-term, short-term mental effects of being locked out for 11 months. Locked out of school.
I am I'm grateful that they just built a path to the Greenway from our neighborhood 2 years ago. We have been on it. We walked the dog probably 3 times a day when this first started last in March. And then the dog had a stroke, unfortunately, adding one more stressor to the family. Yeah, 6-year-old golden retriever. They still haven't figured out, but we pumped enough meds into her that she recovered mostly. But it's just been a lifesaver to be out, walk around, go on the Greenway, ride our bikes, play. And then I hear Gibby get up and say at the other night's meeting, we should close the parks.
I heard that. That's just
parks are contributing to spread. I'm like, that's insane. Parks are the only thing that are keeping people safe right now.
And you've seen these videos as well. For some reason, there's a lot of bars downtown that are wide open every night of the week, but nothing happening to them. But by George, there's a group of kids over there. We can't let it happen. But I regress. It is.
Well, no, you're exactly right. And they're ruining it for all of us.
They're ruining for all of us. I think most people would say that the lack of common sense is what has been the most frustrating to all of us as we go through this.
Yes.
But getting back to swimming. So have your girls, anyone you know, your coach, has anyone heard from Sue Doran during this whole thing?
Yes, we have.
You have? Okay.
The South Meg parents got together with other sports parents, not just swimmers, but their swim coaches, their AD. They did a letter writing campaign last week, from what I understand from one of the South Mech parents whose daughter used to swim for me. As I said, I had a developmental team, so my kids go from my team to all high schools, all club teams. And she sent me the letter, and it said basically, well, on the state calendar, swimming doesn't finish up till January 30th. And I'm thinking to myself, if we don't finish till January 30th, why didn't we have more dual meets? Why did we not have meets the last 2 weeks? Why was our conference already scheduled? I'm just thinking that to myself. And she's like, it's a safety issue, blah, blah, blah. But since you were technically not in postseason, even though you were at your conference meet, that's not postseason in our eyes. And so to us, you've been cut off midseason, not postseason. And Ernest Winston sent a letter to another parent at Providence who said basically the same thing. It was almost cut and paste. He said, yep, on the calendar, you're not done till the 30th. So you're in midseason, you're not in postseason. But, we've had 2 meets, 4 altogether for other teams. Why weren't we having meets the last 2 weeks if we're still in midseason?
We're asking questions that they will not answer. And we're asking, there's, I can't find, at some point, compassion goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there hasn't been any of that towards the athletes or the students or it just, you've been involved in this city for how long? How long have you been here covering our city from a news perspective?
I moved here to start working at News 14, as it was known back then, in 2002. That. Yeah.
Okay. It just makes you wonder, without saying any names, we seem to be lacking on leadership in our town right now in a lot of areas. And that's a little worrisome. We've had some incredible mayors in the past. We've had some incredible school board leaders, and it's just seems to be, granted, we were hit with a pandemic that no one's ever dealt with, but
right.
It will be interesting as we get past this pandemic and look backwards on what mistakes were made and how to learn from it to keep these children and families from going through some of the things that they've had to go through for the last 11 months. And listen, it's not going to end at 11 months. Let's be real. Yeah. Your children are not walking back into Myers Park February 15th for classes. That's just not going to happen. I wish it would, but
it's so sad.
It is. It's sad. I am fortunate in that my child is at a school that does go every day. However, the one message I would deliver about that, there have been a lot of remote times, and he is the school leader somehow for a number of days that he has been forced into quarantine from being too close to someone else. And he has spent half of his days this school year not being allowed to go in his building, which there's a lot of mental effects that's being isolated when everyone else is there has not been easy, but I don't want to act like we've been through what all the other high school students have been through. Give me real quickly, because they may get mad at you if you don't. I want a couple minutes. Since she's a senior, tell me about your senior. Tell me what's on her deck. Tell me, I want to show her some love. Tell me about her.
Well, once upon a time. No, she's always been a very special girl from the moment she was in daycare, because she was my first. I still worked full time when she was in daycare. And excuse me, my eyes always water. I'm not crying. The daycare teachers would call her the boss, and she was just outgoing, active, animated. I looked at her with her curly blonde hair and her big old smile and her giggle, and I'd be like, how on earth did I create something that beautiful? I just couldn't believe it. And she's always been a special kid. And she took to swimming immediately. She took to lessons. She swam fast. We put her on a winter league team when she was in first grade. She excelled immediately. She won all of her events in the Y leagues, all the way up to 8 and unders. She's just always been incredible. She loved it. She had a good group of girls, which is super important. That connectivity that they have with teammates is a real motivator. And there was a good group of girls that she swam with when she started swimming for me and she swam for me for about 4 years. That group of girls her age pushed each other, and they were a great group. And I'm like, oh, she's ready to go to club teams now. And we did 2 years at a really big club team that I won't name. It was just too much for our bandwidth. It was a little overwhelming for her. She made a lot of progress, but I knew it wasn't the situation that was right for her. Being that she'd always gone to the arts magnets, she was used to very small, inclusive groups. So we moved her to another team, and she went full time with swimming, and she really caught fire with it. She just caught the bug. She's been making constant improvement the last 2.5 years, or should I say it was 1.5 until she was cut off last year. Yeah. But the fact that she would do best times in the 200 and 500 free mid-season, which is beginning of February. I don't know if you know a lot about swimming, but you have your work season, you have your mid-season, and then you have your rest at the end of the season. And rest allows you to swim faster. Basically, you've done the work, you've built the muscles, you've done the distance in the water. Now you rest, and your muscles are like, hey, I feel great, and I swim real fast. And she was at mid-season, and she still did best time. So we were really looking forward to that end of season, her junior year, because we knew she wanted to swim in college. She didn't get to do her end of season meets. She had to take 2 months off out of the water. She didn't get to do any meets in summer. And then she started back in the fall, and her schedule was still pretty jacked up because the aquatic center uptown, where her group would practice twice a week, kept closing.
Right.
So she only got to do 4 practices a week instead of the 8 she usually does in the summer, because Cordelia was closed. And so this year has been all about making up for lost time. I mean, she's a great kid. She has a 3.8 in school. She's still an artist, just like the arts magnet she went to. That was our deal, that if she went to Myers Park, she could still take art classes and do that. And she's found a major that she really loves in college. She just wants to swim in college. And right now, because of this past year, she doesn't have really competitive best times. I know she could be a good 5 seconds faster in her 200 free. But we're trying to tell college coaches, this is what she's capable of. We know she can do it. It's just this year. And they hear that from a lot of kids.
Sure.
But not having a high school season to go to regions, to go to conference, compete, do your best times, I think that's really hurt her, especially because she's a senior. She's not a team captain because she's on the dream team. Coach Goodis didn't want to make her a captain because she figured her loyalties would be split, but she is on the executive board for the team. She's helped out. She's volunteered where she needed to. And she's just tried to be a team leader. And we were really looking forward to conference doing a best time in that 500 free, which she just hasn't been able to pull out this season yet. So we're hoping that she's college coaches are still interested in her based on her potential, which I know is great. And I always tell her, you know, you're capable of great things. Just believe in yourself. But she really hasn't had the chance to show it this year. And as her mom and a former swimmer myself, I'm like, trust me, I see you swim. I know what you're capable of. Believe in yourself and go do it. And she just hasn't had the chance to show it yet because of everything this year. And conference being cut out, that was insult to injury right there.
Yeah, it was. Please give her my best, and please let us all know when she does decide what she's going to do for college. Yeah. I'm just going to close this out right here. And I realize the superintendent's not going to watch this. However,
yeah,
Superintendent Winston, if you're watching right now, you've gotten the letters. If you've been paying attention to the landscape right now, let's get swimming back on board.
Yeah,
let the ones that have earned the right to do regionals go on to regionals.
Yes.
Conference meet. Let's let them finish out. If we're going to do this for the other sports, I really don't see what we're hurting by doing this.
And that is our main point.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
We're not asking to be an exception.
You were right there with it. Fair. Everything was, it's just breaking too many stones right there to not include swimming right now. I don't know what your plan is, Superintendent, for the rest of the year. I don't know what's going to happen to these other sports. I don't know what's going to happen in our community with the health metrics and everything else, but sure would be a nice gesture and show a little compassion to let swimming finish their year out. And I'll just leave it at that. Diana, I so much appreciate you joining me. I love following you on Twitter, and I love you advocating for kids. And that's what we all need to do, is fight for kids and give them all we can right now. So I appreciate everyone listening. I will get this all posted up on YouTube as the morning goes. And I hope you have a nice weekend.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for joining me on South Charlotte Sports Report Live. We'll be back again next week with some more interesting guests. Thank you, and have a great day.